Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at a brand new top meta threat in the Great League, Carbink. Carbink was released into Pokemon Go today. It is a rock and fairy type Pokemon with a similar bulk to Bastiodon, but a way better typing. If you have a global Go Fest ticket, you get early access to it now via research. There will be a global release of it in the near future. Now, Carbink, I used a ton of Rare Candy and Rare Candy XL to power it up, and this thing is a monster. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and watch Carbink destroy the Great League. Hopping to the first match, picking up a Great Lead Lurantis into Scrafty. Honestly, this team triple counters Scrafty, so it's a Pokemon I'm very happy to see. I am full sending the Superpower here. Superpower rocks the Scrafty. We save switch into Toxapex as they fire off the foul play. The goal of the Toxapex save switch is to check for a Steel type or a Ground type, neither of which Carbink really wants to see in the endgame. But instead, I'm going to be met with Tentacruel. This is a pretty neutral matchup. Of course, both of us are hitting for resisted damage, but we do about equal amounts of resisted damage at that. They're going to be firing off the Scald. Scald connects, and thankfully we are not debuffed. I continue to farm up, making it to the Sludge Wave. This will not KO, but it will get the Tentacruel extremely low. Sludge Wave gets the Tentacruel low. Tentacruel will fire off a last second charge move, and again, I'm not going to shield. Tentacruel is running Blizzard as the nuke, but I'm able to hang on with a sliver of HP and win switch. In the back is Toxapex, and that's not what I was hoping to see, but let's see what Carbink can do here. Carbink does take neutral damage from the poison jabs and super effective damage from the brine. As you can see, I am taking these poison jabs quite well, firing off the rock slide, and my opponent is going to no shield, but first we're going to make a catch. We are going to catch a brine onto our Lurantis. They're going to get a nice farm down of the Lurantis, but not before I should be able to force a shield with the Leaf Blade here. Leaf Blade onto the Toxapex will be shielded. Lurantis is going to get farmed down, and now let's see what Carbink is made of. I'm going to no shield here. Toxapex goes for the brine. That does absolutely nothing. What the heck is that? Carbink is absurdly bulky. To be fair, Toxapex doesn't hit very hard, but that did absolutely nothing. Carbink now going to fire off the rock slide into the Toxapex. Toxapex will commit the shield. I'm shielding up as well because this is around a range where a brine would be lethal. Opponent sends in Scrafty. Scrafty trying to make it to the charge move, but Carbink able to rock throw down a fighter, make it to the rock slide. Rock slide will be taken care of that Toxapex, and that is a good game. Picking up a Great Lead in the next match, Lurantis into Bastiodon. Lurantis does quite well into Bastiodon thanks to the ability to hit for double super effective damage with Superpower. Firing off Superpower number 1 into the Bastiodon. Bastiodon will commit the shield, but I'm already at a second Superpower here. This is debuff, but it's still double super effective. That does a ton of damage. I send in Toxapex, and my opponent sends in Shadow Victory Bell. So they are running the standard Bastiodon, Shadow Victory Bell, and Medicham team in the back. Sludge Wave is going to say goodbye to that Shadow Victory Bell. That is beautiful to see. In comes Bastiodon. Bastiodon has a ton of energy, and it's going to use it. Bastiodon firing off the Stone Edge. Toxapex trying to farm up to a brine, but great counting by the Bastiodon, firing off a charge move just before I make my brine. Stone Edge will KO. I'm going to send back in Lurantis. Lurantis looking to massively overfarm in this matchup and go for the Superpower before my opponent can make a Flamethrower. This will be lethal. Superpower KOs. In the back is Medicham, and let's see this matchup. Carbink versus Medicham. Medicham, these counters will hit for neutral, and so will the Psychics. They fire off a Psychic. Carbink tanks that extremely well. Carbink farming up to the Moonblast, baiting with the Rock Slide. This is a massive call. Opponent commits the shield on the Rock Slide. That is huge. Carbink, with 2 shields remaining, is going to commit a shield here. Medicham baits with an Ice Punch. They're trying to make it to the Psychic. Carbink makes it to the Moonblast. That is a rock type winning the 1 shield against Medicham, and that's a good game. Hopping into the next match, picking up a terrible lead, Lurantis into Pidgeot. I save switch into Toxapex. Pidgeot gonna stay in here and debuff me with a Feather Dance before they switch out. That's quite unfortunate. Toxapex already does not do a lot of damage, and my opponent sends in Sableye. This is not what I was hoping to bait out. Carbink absolutely destroys Sableye. I believe Sableye only wins if it has a 2-0 shield advantage, so I'd much rather see Sableye against the Carbink than either the Lurantis or the Toxapex. I'm double debuffed here, which is quite unfortunate, but our switch clocks are misaligned. They stayed in to throw a charge move, so I can switch and they cannot. So now I can send in Lurantis and save that Toxapex for later in the game. They fire off the return. That nearly one-shots Lurantis, able to make a last-second Leaf Blade. This will be lethal unless my opponent wants to commit a shield. They do. Sableye will get KO'd, and now my opponent is going to send in Pidgeot. I am unfortunately still switch locked. They are not, so I'm going to wait my timer and then send in Carbink. Carbink hitting for super effective damage. In the back, it's a Swampert, and this is basically the worst case scenario here. Swampert hits for super effective damage with Hydro Cannon, but as you can see, it tanks a Hydro Cannon shockingly well. I make it to the Rock Slide bait, but unfortunately I lose CMP to the Swampert. I think my only win con is to try and catch a Hydro Cannon onto the Toxapex. I fire off the Rock Slide bait, I'm able to get the shield, I'm going to farm up 5 rock throws, switch into the Toxapex, but my opponent shows terrific patience as they hang on to their energy. I fire off the Brine, opponent shields. That might potentially give a win con. They bank so much energy. They send in Pidgeot. Pidgeot not able to farm down before I make it to the Brine. Brine will get them low. Now I just have to try and farm down with Carbink. Carbink looking for the farm down. I'm saving my shield for the Hydro Cannon. Pidgeot goes for the Brave Bird. It does not KO. Carbink with 1 HP remaining, making it to the Moonblast. Moonblast KOs the Swampert. And against all odds, we get the win. Speaking of Sableye, we see it on the lead in the next match. Lurantis will be able to outpace, as with Fury Cutter, it just charges incredibly quickly. I fire off the Leaf Blade, that connects, and now I just send in Toxapex to be a damage sponge. But my opponent makes a very nice play. They don't throw their energy on Sableye. Instead, they're going to hang on to it and send in Registeel. This is honestly good for me because I don't want my Carbink to see Registeel. Registeel does very well into Carbink just by virtue of resisting all of its charge moves. They fire off the Zap Cannon into the Toxapex, and I'm just going to throw as many Brines as they'll allow me to get to. Brine is going to connect onto the Registeel, continuing to farm up. Opponent will fire off a charge move, and again, that's fine by me. Opponent goes for the Focus Blast. They undercharge the Focus Blast, and it's the perfect undercharge. What a play by my opponent. I'm farming up. Opponent saves the Registeel for later, anticipating that I was trying to bait it out. Sableye goes for the foul play. I'm going to save a move myself, and now Carbink looking for the farm down. Carbink resists Sableye's moveset here. Foul play, resisted. Return, resisted. So it just absolutely crushes Sableye. My opponent probably going to be sending back in the Registeel. They saved it for a reason. Zap Cannon would definitely hurt, so I will commit the shield. Zap Cannon does not get the debuff. That's huge. I'm looking to overfarm and go for the Rock Slide. This is resisted, but they're low enough that this should be enough to KO. Rock Slide will KO. In the back, it's Shadow Alolan Sandslash. And this is not good for me. My opponent will go for the Ice Punch here. I don't believe they built up to that Drill Run, and honestly, they're just looking for chip damage, and that's fine by me. I'm going for the Rock Slide. Opponent, no shields. They're saving shields for a charge move from the Lurantis, but they're not going to get there. Carbink is too tanky. Rock throws down the Sandslash and gets the win. Hopping into the next match, picking up a tricky lead, Lurantis into Shadow Alolan Sandslash. Both of these Pokemon have the ability to deal massive damage to each other, so this is a very precarious matchup. I bait with a Leaf Blade, and I'm able to grab a shield. That's quite nice, as this should allow Lurantis to outpace in the 2s. They fire off the Ice Punch, that will be shielded, and now I am not baiting. Going straight for the Superpower here. Superpower is going to connect, and down goes the Sandslash. Opponent sends in Medicham, I pivot into Toxapex, and their final Pokemon is revealed to be Lantern. Everything is lining up perfectly for me here. I was able to bait out the Lantern, and I have Carbink, which, as long as the Medicham doesn't have 2 shields, does very well into Medicham. I'm firing off the Sludge Wave, that will be no-shielded by my opponent. My opponent continuing to farm. I'm just going to go for the Brine here. This will get some chip damage. It's not going to KO, but it will put them into a range where I can fast move farm down. Opponent commits the shield. They're thinking about a farm down, and they get the farm down. But the nice thing is, I still have the Grass-type Lurantis that is going to resist their charge moves. Opponent goes for the Surf. They're going to send in Medicham. I bank a Leaf Blade, and now it is Carbink time. I am very much behind on energy, but honestly, that's okay. They go for the Psychic. As you can see, Carbink, just the bulk of it is absolutely absurd. They can make another Psychic. Guess what? This still doesn't KO. They go for the Psychic. Carbink able to tank it, make it to the Moonblast. Moonblast, big damage onto the Medicham, and Medicham gets Rock Throw down. In comes the Lantern. Lantern able to make it to the back-to-back Surfs here. Surf number 1 is going to KO the Carbink. They make Surf number 2 versus the Lurantis, but this is why we have the shield. Lurantis shields the Surf, and the Fury Cutter KOs. Picking up a favorable lead in the next match, Lurantis into Galarian Stunfisk. Considering I have 2 Pokemon in the back that do not want to see ground types, this is absolutely where I want to see it. Opponent tries to catch a superpower onto Noctowl, but I'm able to hang on to my energy, and now in comes Carbink. They go for the Shadow Ball. That just does nothing to Carbink. This Pokemon's bulk is just absurd, and the Rock Throws already have the Noctowl below half health. Noctowl is going to fire off another charge move here. They go for the Shadow Ball. I'm going to farm up to the back-to-back Rock Slides, and my opponent, at this point, can't really make a play for Switch, so they're just going to let that through. They can send back in the Galarian Stunfisk. Stunfisk will have to throw energy to KO here. They send in the Stunfisk. I'm able to make it to the Moonblast. Moonblast, not going to do a lot of damage. It is resisted, and Carbink has a pretty low attack stat, but hey, all damage is helpful here. They're going to fire off a charge move. They go for the Rock Slide. That still does not KO, and they Mudshot down. In comes Lurantis. I'm firing off the Leaf Blade. Unfortunately, slightly suboptimal timing there as I end up throwing on alignment. My opponent does commit a shield. That is quite nice for me, and they're firing off a charge move. It's the Rock Slide. I'm able to tank that. They're going for Rock Slide number 2, and I'm going to commit the shield. Again, I have to try and watch for a catch. Opponent sends in Altaria, and I'm going to send in Toxapex, and I make a massive misplay in this endgame. Toxapex can typically win the ones versus Altaria, just going straight Sludge Wave, but unfortunately, I misremembered, and I thought I had to bait to win the ones, and as you're going to see, this is going to cost me the game. I go for a Brine Bait, my opponent calls the bait, and I'm now in absolute shambles. I will commit a shield, because my Lurantis can't really do much of anything against the Altaria. So I'm like, you know what? They already called one bait, surely now they're going to shield. They kind of have to, and they call another bait. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? I'm forced to go for a third Brine. At this point, they're just going to save the shield for the G-Fisk, and the question is, are they in a range where Superpower will KO? It's going to be close. I'm full sending the Superpower here, hoping they call the Leaf Blade, but they do not. They commit the shield, and unfortunately, that's going to be game over for me. Superpower is now debuffed, and that's not going to KO. They can make the Rock Slide to KO the Lurantis, and I just don't have enough health remaining on my Toxapex. So Toxapex will get Mudshot farmed down. Hopping into the final match, we see the Dream lead Lurantis into Swampert. Let's go. Opponent save switches into Noctowl, and Noctowl save switch has never looked more futile than when going up against Carbink. They can go for multiple Shadow Balls, and it's just not going to matter. Carbink very comfortably takes multiple Shadow Balls and can just farm up to the back-to-back Rock Slides here. They go for Shadow Ball number 2. Again, Carbink just does not care. Carbink farming up to the back-to-back Rock Slides because I do want to try and land a Moonblast onto the Swampert if I can. Rock Slide will KO. Opponent can send back in the Swampert, but Swampert is not going to be able to Mudshot down. As opposed to something like a Bastiodon where from this health range, Swampert could farm down. Carbink only takes single super effective damage from the Mudshot, so they cannot Mudshot down here. Look at how little damage that does. They're forced to fire off a charge move. So now, not only do they not have a lot of energy, but they still don't have Switch. It's a Pidgeot in the back, and this could get a bit uncomfortable, as Pidgeot is just going to straight Feather Dance me in the 2-shield. They want to try and debuff my attack as much as possible in order to try and tilt this neutral matchup into their favor. Odds are they're probably shielding whatever I throw here because they want to quad debuff me, and that's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to be now firing off another Feather Dance, which means I am 4 stages debuffed, and Toxapex is already low attack, just does absolutely nothing. I'm firing off a Sludge Wave. This is quad debuffed. That does not do a lot of damage to the Pidgeot. Opponent is going to send in Swampert, but this honestly works perfectly for me, as I'm able to reset the debuff on Toxapex. Leaf Blade KOs the Swampert. Back in comes the Pidgeot. Pidgeot firing off a charge move. They should be going for the Feather Dance here, which means I can no shield. I'll be able to make it to the superpower, even debuffed. This will be lethal. Pidgeot will have to give up the final shield here. Pidgeot is going to get the farm down, but with 2 shields remaining, Toxapex will prove to be too much for Pidgeot to handle. They full send the Brave Bird. Good job identifying their win con, but I commit the shield, and that's a good game. All in all, Carbink is an absolute force to be reckoned with in the Great League. This is a Pokemon that when it does get its global release, I highly recommend getting one and investing in it. It does require XL candies to get it all the way to 1500 CP. As you can see, I put quite a few XLs into mine, and mine was still only about 1430 CP, but hey, even at like 1430 CP, this thing is an absolute beast. As I mentioned, very similar bulk to Bastiodon, but a better typing, which does make it slightly less of an alignment dependent mon compared to something like Bastiodon. So once everyone has access to this, the Great League meta, I think it's gonna have a new top contender. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you, as always, to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.